Hello and welcome to another video on Microsoft Fabric, and in today's video we are going to discuss how to run incremental data load or ETL on a data warehouse using data pipelines. Now when I say incremental, what does I mean and what are the options we have? So basically when I say incremental, in that case what would happen is that I'm going to bring in new data and I'm going to either append it or merge it with my fact. Now there are typically three strategies to do a incremental data load, or what we call incremental ETL. So I can bring the data into the staging. Even for first time I can bring it and I append it with the data with the fact. In this case we make sure that we have one date. That date is getting collected into a staging table or into a log table basically, and that log table is going to pass the date to the source, and from the source we only get limited data, and that limited data getting merged with the fact. In this case we are making sure that it is after a particular collection date. Let's say creation date is most suitable for that. In the second case what happens is we say okay, we will go little bit into the past, so whatever date we get, we go into 1 month past or 2 month past, and then we collect it. Now because our staging table has more data, with the minimum date which staging table has, we delete the data which is after the minimum date in the fact, and then we again insert the complete data into the staging table into the fact. Now again this date would be used to pass to the argument when we are trying to query the data from the source, so that staging get that additional data. Third, again we are going to query on in the staging, but this time we use a date like updated date. So in such cases the fact or the dimension table you want to update should have a primary key. Now in such case what happens is, based on the update date the new data comes in, and then we insert and update. So whatever data is matching on the primary key we just update that, and whatever data is not matching we insert that. Now my approach would be between first and third, because what I'm going to show you is a method which is very similar to the insert of this insert update, because I don't have a update date. So that is only just for an example that you can execute it in this manner also. So to do that, let's jump onto the fabric, and you can get to the fabric using app.powerbi.com, and from there I'm hopeful you have already enabled the fabric trial, and those who have not enabled it and watching this video directly, please go to the start of this series and from there you should start. Now let's go ahead and do it. I already have a fabric workspace which is 01 fabric, which I'm using for most of my videos, and in this video I'm going to create a new warehouse and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do there. So in this new warehouse I'm going to bring in data from PostgreSQL. I already have a PostgreSQL connection from where I plan to bring this data. So this one I'm going to call it dwincr post. dwincr from PostgreSQL. I'm calling this new data warehouse. Now in this data warehouse from where I'm bringing the data. So I created a table, sales fact table there in my Postgres, and in there I have inserted data from another table which is sale, which is already there. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to truncate this table and I'm going to load a limited amount of data. So what I've done is I'm dividing my data into two parts so I can show you incremental. So in the first part I'm loading the data which is less than 31st of January 2019. Now I can query the number of rows. These are the number of rows. So this is a table in the PostgreSQL which has some data, and I want to bring it into the data warehouse. And after bringing this data into the data warehouse, I would also like to go ahead and bring in new data. So after that, when we able to execute our pipeline, we'll come back here, and after coming back here we'll load more data and run the pipeline again, and we'll see whether we are getting additional data or not. So now let's go to the warehouse. Now what I need to do in the warehouse, I need to create certain tables. So these are the table which I need to create, and the second table, this table might require certain changing staging, because while I was testing it did not allowed me to have the float data type for some of the columns. So for that I need a modification. So what I'm going to do is, my data warehouse is already created and dbo is present. Once dbo is present, at that time you can start using it. I can right click on that and can say new SQL query, and or I can simply create new SQL query here. I'll get it. Now here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this log table, and this I'm creating it for single table, but you can definitely have it for more than one table. There's no limitation. Only thing is, while creating your data pipeline, please take care of that. So I create this table. I'm going to insert the data into this one. So I will have one row here which will contain that data, that from which date I supposed to start. Now there I was saying less than, but here I'm going to query everything which is strictly greater than. Now if you want to use greater than or equal to, so some small changes you need to do. With the same structure, with exactly same structure, with the data type suitable to SQL Server, I am creating this one. Make sure with the date time to also you give this 6 as a because date time 2 we supposed to give a precision. It was erroring without that, so date time 2 I have given a precision. And then I creating my fact table. So I created a staging table, I created a fact table. So the idea here is I'm going to load the data into the staging table, and from the staging table I'm going to move it to the final fact table. So now let's bring in the procedure also which is going to do it. And in this procedure I have a commented statement. I'll tell you why I have kept that commented. Right now let me bring in the new this one here, and I'm going to enable this right now. So what happens is, those who watched my previous video, they know I have used data flow to bring in the data into the staging for warehouse. But when we are going to use the warehouse and we try to bring the data into the staging, when we are going to use the pipeline and going to bring the data into the staging, pipeline can't truncate the data. What happens in data flow, it if we bring in the new data, it's going to remove the old data and bring the new data, depending on this what kind of setup we have done. So we'll not have the older data. Now here that's not the case. Here we are going to get additional data, and additional data is going to append directly with the older data. So I need to delete the data into the staging. So at the end of my ETL process, or at the end of my data load process, I'm going to delete it. Now I have not put any error handling here, and you will see when I face the error I have to actually go ahead and remove my tables and recreate it and do some of those aspects. But my advice would be, whatever error handling is supported right now, please use that. Now we will face certain errors here. Now one of the error we face is, this is something that you have this is case sensitive, so make sure everything is case sensitive. The A was something which is not case sensitive. I use some places I use small a, some places I use capital A, and that's why it is giving error. So my tables are ready, my procedure is ready. I now need to create a data pipeline, and that data pipeline should bring in the data into the staging table, and my procedure will take care that it move to the main fact table. Now let me open the DBO and check out what of tables I have here. And if I click on this table, I should be able to see one row, and that one row should show me 1st January 2018. Now that's fine. Sales should show me empty data, and staging should also show me empty data. So there's no data here. Now the time has come that we will go ahead and create a data pipeline. I'm going to open a new tab, and there I'm going to create it, because I'm going to come back to this time and again. Now to do that, the reason some of the things I've done is, first of all, I kept my log table here. My log table is not on the target, because my target is something where if I need to have a write permission if I want a log table. So warehouse is something where I have the permission, so I'm going to keep it. Now remember, these are the things which I'm doing in warehouse, where SQL is something which can do work for me. If I have to do in lake house, I need a different strategy. So again, I'm going to use 01 fabric, and in 01 fabric, I'm going to create a data pipeline. So I go to here and I say show all, in the new show all, and I'm say data pipeline. So the first activity which I'm going to create in my data pipeline once, so let me first give it a name, and then I'll tell you what activity I'm going to create. So this is, let's call it dw post incr load. Okay, dw postgres incr load. That's what we wanted to bring in. I'm creating. So first activity I'm going to do is the lookup activity. So from the lookup activity, I'm going to bring in the data from my warehouse. I want to bring one date. I want to bring the sales date. Now, if you have multiple table, then you need to handle that with the filter, or you have to run a loop here to do that. Right now we are going to create a very simple pipeline, so we'll not have a loop. Here we are going to load for the one table and test it out. So I'll say add pipeline activity, and what activity I plan to add is first activity I plan to add is the lookup. Now when I want to add the lookup activity, okay, I've done something wrong. Let me delete both of them. I deleted one of them. So now I have a lookup activity. In the lookup activity, I'm not going to change anything in the general. If I go to the setting from where I want, so I say I want it from workspace. Which works? So workspace KQL database or data warehouse. I say I want it from data warehouse. Which data warehouse? So we have created a new data warehouse, which is dbo.incr Postgres. That's the data warehouse which we have created, isn't it? dbo.incr Post. Now from there what we want is we want a table or a query. So I'm going to say I'm going to query, and if you remember I have written one query there in my this one. So I'm going to copy this, and I need to name the steps also like that. Okay, so this is by this one, and journal lookup, let me put the name also as last date. So trying to keep it very similar to what I've done in the past. So something failed, then I can go back and refer to that. So this is the step which I want, and this step should give me a max collection date max from the INCR info, and that's what I wanted here. So that's my thing, and what I can do is I can run it and check it out whether I get it date or not. So if I run it, it will say save and run. So I say save and run, and once it's run successfully, it should show me a variable where I should get my output. So it's running, and after the successful run, it should show me. Right now it's running here. So in the top you will be able to see here a small this icon keep on moving. Once I highlight, it doesn't show, but it keep on moving, and once after some time it should also start showing here. So these are the few places where you get it. Now it is running first time, so it takes a little bit of time, but the moment you go and say here last date, you see these two icons. Please pay attention to these two icons. I'm not sure if they will remain with highlight. Yes, they are. Now if you see here the date is coming, that's the date we wanted, and it's coming at a max date. Now remember this. Now the second step I'm going to use is I'm going to create a variable using that one, which I plan to use in my SQL. Now to do that, I need to go to activity, and there I need to say set variable, and on the success of this one, I want this variable to give me some output, and the output which I want is I'm going to click here on this one. In the setting, I want a variable output here, so I'm going to click here, and I'm going to give it a name as max date, and I only have option like string, boolean, and array, so I'm going to use string here, and I say confirm. Then I'll get this, and I want to add a dynamic content here because I want to use the variables which are coming from the other pipeline elements. So here I want this. Now this is not going to suffice. I need, so if you remember, we have seen one variable, it was showing the max date variable. If you remember when we seen that the JSON which was there, so that's the variable we need. So I'm going to keep it like this. So this is what I need, activity, and let me say okay. Now again, I've done my pipeline, and I'm done with two steps of my pipeline, and I need to test it out whether I'm going to get a date here or not. And so let me run it, and while running it might ask for a value, so but let's go ahead and run it and test it out. So we go to run, and we say run. This is save and run. So it's saying saving successfully. And it's running on the top. So you can see on the top here it is running, and I can click on that and see what's happening. Okay, it has run both the steps successfully pretty quickly. I think only first time when it start taking time when it get the query done, but most of time after that it runs it pretty quickly. So we got a date and the value. Now we are ready for the third step. And what I'm going to do, because the third step is going to bring in the data, I will create third and fourth step together. Now there will be some challenges which might face again here, and for that we need to work for a solution. So the next activity which I want after this set variable is copy data. So I'm going to say copy data and add to canvas. I don't want assistance for there, and I again after the success I want to come here in the copy data. The first thing is find the source is something which is now external. In the external, I'm using my already created connection, but you can create it. So what I've done already, I've used new and I create a PostgreSQL connection by using the PostgreSQL connection parameters. Then I use the Postgres here, and now it is asking I'm going to give a query, and I've already written that query. Now I'll tell you this query again need to be with dynamic content. So in the dynamic content, what thing you need to take care is when you bring in this variable, this is not going to work out like this. So for that, what you need to do is you need to do two things. You need to put the angular brackets here, and then you need to put this entire stuff into a single quotes also, because this is a this is, let me put, I think little bit tricky, but I should be able to do it. Okay. So this is how you have to use it. So what I'm going to do is let me bring in the code from here. If you can see the same way we are using max date. Okay. So this is the complete code. So what I'm saying, select star from sales data with the schema there dot sales fact where the sales date is greater than this max variable. That is what we want here. So, and let me press OK. We have done the source setting. We also need to do the destination setting. For the destination setting, what you need to do is we need to click on the workspace. In the workspace, we want data warehouse where we wanted to move the data. Then we wanted to move the data to dw incremental, and there we want to use an existing table. So let it load, and if it doesn't load, then we are going to refresh it, but it already loaded it. So this is the staging table where I want it to load. So the next step I want is to have the mapping table generated. So I say import schemas, and it asks for a value here. Let's say 2018-01-01. It's not showing value. That's a little bit challenging, but let's see. Hopefully when we run the complete one, it do take a value from the last step. So it's going to run the query, going to bring in some data, and based on that it's going to generate the schema, and that's the schema which we are going to use to map with our schema. So now the schema has come in, and these are coming string, and this is what is going to create a little bit of problem, but let's see whether it happens or not. So now what we are going to do is we are going to add the last step. We are going to add the procedure. Now mapping is complete, we will add the procedure. Now if this step is successful, then I want to run my procedure. And the reason I'm not testing this and directly putting a procedure, because if this step is successful, I will get the data into my staging, and I need to remove the data from the staging if I need to bring it again, if I don't run my procedure. So on the success of this one, I want to run the SQL procedure. Where is my SQL procedure? My SQL procedure is lying into my workspace only. So from the workspace, not the external data, I need to bring in my database, which is dw.incr post, and then I need to say refresh here. If it doesn't load, you can just check out. Now I already have this. So my setup is now complete. So if this pipeline runs without any issues, it should copy the data into the staging table, and staging table should move it to the final fact table. Now before we run it, let's again have a look at it. Let's go to the query and let's write down to SQL here, and which should give us top 100. From top 100, I'm going to copy it out. There's no top 100 here, but still let me write down. Now I'm writing down what I need here. Count star. This is what I need from. So I need count of both, so I can quickly check what numbers I have after the ETL is done. Okay, so this is 0, this is 0. Now let me go ahead and run this one. So I'm all set to run this. How we are going to run it? So let's first of all save this pipeline, and saving as validation has failed. Let's see what validation has failed. So validate. Direct copying of data warehouse copy command is not supported. Please use enable staging. So in the setting, we have to enable the staging. Okay, now close, and we say validate. Now it is validated successfully. Save, validate, and then the run. Let me run it. So started showing on the top here. Those of you already made notice of that. I'm going to click on the bell icon here, and it will show me what's running here. And soon the output will start showing. These are the previous output. We'll see the new outputs here, and it do keep track of what is happening there. So yes, we have reached copy data, and I'm expecting an error here because you have seen the data type where we had certain issue. See, the numeric which is coming from PostgreSQL is something which is it's not able to identify as the float, and because of that it has taken a text, and I'm expecting an error here while it is going to copy the data, and yes, it has failed. Now it has failed, the procedure, the process has failed, and what we are going to do here is let's go ahead and see what data we have now. So we go to the staging and we see there is 0 rows because the data has failed. We go here, we see 0 rows, but the most importantly, because we just wanted to make sure the dates and everything is fine. So now I'm going to tell you the alternate what happens when such thing happens is, now I know that that particular data type has some issue. So I'm going to modify my table script here. So my table script is available here. So these things I'm going to make them, all four of them, I'm going to make them varchar 4000. And good thing when I tried last time was, even though they are varchar 4, I was not required to do any change in my sales table and my ETL. It do work without that. So I'm going to, I need a drop table script also. So I need to create that. So I say drop table this one, and I'm going to create that again. So now I'm creating with varchar. Okay. So it's got completed. Now we go to the pipeline. Now we again validate it. Everything is fine. No need of run, save. Let's run it. So again we are running. We have changed our table because the copy data we have seen in this tab, the data type were detected, numeric data type were detected as text, and is not able to copy that into the float. So what we are going to do is we are going to leave that responsibility over ETL where we handle it. Now, do we really require to handle it, or the warehouse or the data warehouse? It's not SQL Server, it's warehouse where we are able to run our SQL warehouse. Will we be able to handle that, or we need to write down some code like casting of data type and all those, so that we will be able to know if this copy fails. Now the copy is in progress, and I'm expecting for the first time it's going to take a little bit of time, like around 1 minute or something, but in the subsequent run I have observed that it ran a little bit faster than what it is running right now. 16,000 rows is something which I'm expecting, 16,000 some odd rows, which I'm expecting it to copy, and once it is copy, I'm also expecting that SQL procedure should run successfully, and actually has run successfully. So all the steps have completed. Now time has come, we go ahead and query these tables and check it out, do we have any data there. So we have 0 rows here, and we have 16,687. Like, first of all, validate and why we have 0 rows I'm going to explain you. So we have 16,687 rows here also, and 16,687 here. Why the staging has 0 rows? Because we have deleted it. Now, because we have deleted it, so now you will say, how do I know next time you got only incremental rows, you don't got 30,000 rows? So for that I'm going to do one change in the ETL to showcase you that is only going to query the incremental data. First of all, let's go to the info table in INCR info table and check what is the date. So date has changed, so it means the next time I'm going to run, it's going to pick up data greater than that. So that has been ensured. Now only thing which is going to happen is, now if I run without any change right now, and this change is not needed actually, just for showcasing purpose, I need to do one change. This change which I'm going to do right now is not required. I can actually remove this statement, delete statement, and I'm doing this removal of this delete statement, I'm altering this procedure just to showcase you that the only additional rows has come which we have put in. It's not going to bring in the all the rows. So I ran it, the new procedure has been compiled, but we need additional data also at the source. So now the source right now is having how many rows? Source right now is having this many rows. We will insert a few more rows at our source. We have inserted the rows. Let's see how many rows we have now. We now have 30,000 rows. 30,000 rows. Now at the source we have 30,000 rows. At target right now, in the staging we have 0. Now we have stopped the deletion, so we will get the rows in the staging. So this time when we go, we will need it. But please remember, if I continue this code next time, I need to delete the staging before I collect, because my example is going to end there. So I'm fine with that. But please remember, don't do that step of removing the staging delete statement. Don't remove that. You need that. Now I'm going to go to my pipeline and I can schedule this to run, but right now we just wanted to showcase you again and again what is happening. So I have run my pipeline again, and this time I'm expecting some 13,000 odd rows to come in. So the date should be one which is updated, should get picked up. Then I should get a variable, the copy should copy 13,000 rows, and then the procedure should merge those 13,000 rows, means insert in this case into my final fact table. So I should get 30,000 rows in my fact table. So it's right now in process, and I'm expecting around 40 seconds it should take again. And post that, I'm expecting procedure to quickly do it, because just it's a copy from one place to another place, and that should not take much of the time. So let me refresh it, man. It's already refreshed. 36 seconds it has taken. 4-5 more seconds it should take. Sometime it may delay because of the network bandwidth and because I'm on the trial capacity, but it should typically take similar amount of time. Okay, everything is completed around, again around 41 seconds, and the procedure completed in 5 seconds. Now let's go back and check now what data we have. So now you see 13,000 rows here, and I have 30,000 rows in my sales table. So my sales table is containing the full data which I want. So same way you can write down the ETL for incremental ETL for your dimensions, for your other fact tables. You can create a pipeline loop and can do it, and it's very similar to Azure pipelines. Those who worked on Azure data pipelines, they are very similar to that. Those kind of code is going to work out here. So, and if you don't get much of the videos, you can go ahead and watch Azure data pipeline videos and learn from there how to get the best advantage. If you get the similar things here, they will work. There might be small changes here and there, because these there has been few changes which is coming from there to here. So those changes might be there, but most of the time you will find it very near to Azure data pipeline. So if you find any issues, you can just search with the name of Azure pipeline. And if you remember, I have shown you the curly braces and the singular quote. I got it in the same manner. I searched over internet when I faced the issue, and I got it in the Azure data pipeline. Now time to test this. So we are going to go to the data tab below here, and from here what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new report and quickly test it out my newly created data warehouse with the incremental load enabled only using the pipeline. Okay, so let me bring in item ID here. Once it is coming, I want to move it to the x-axis. I'm going to bring sum of quantity, and I remember what is my sum of quantity, so I'm going to bring my table visual in place. So I'll change it to table visual. 49,000 something should have come. It is count of quantity. Let's see why it is count of. Okay, because we are creating from staging, so let's remove this. Let's do it from the sales table, item ID, and now we have to say don't sum it, we have to say don't summarize, and sum of quantity, which is going to be 49,913. This data is correct. We are able to bring in the data, and let me bring in price before I wrap it up. We can use average price instead of sum of price. So now you know how you can go ahead and bring in the data using data pipeline. How can you pass on the variables? How can you create an incremental kind of a scenario? There could be different ways to execute it, but within the given set of features in Microsoft Fabric, we will be able to run these kind of incremental ETL. You can create something more complex, and do let me know what you have created. Also suggest me what else you wanted me to cover in this particular series. Thanks for watching this video. Thank you.